Welcome to the Weekly Dose Podcast, your one-stop shop for the weekly news in incretin mimetic therapies, with your host, man on the Manjaro, Dave Knapp. Welcome to this week's Weekly Dose Podcast, your weekly roundup of all things GLP-1 medications, whether you're on Wegovy, Ozempic, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Manjaro, or Zepbound, you're on the pen, and that's why you're here. I'm Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro, and I'm here to bring you the news this week, and there was plenty of it. Let's get right into it. The FDA announced today that Eli Lilly has updated them to let them know that the 10 milligram, the 12.5 milligram, and the 15 milligram doses of Manjaro are officially in FDA shortage through March. So this is a fascinating update. It's something that I've been warning on my channel for a couple of months now, that once we went live with Zepbound, that we were going to probably see staggering numbers of prescriptions written for Zepbound. And that's exactly what we've seen up to, I think at last check, I think they had mentioned somewhere in the ballpark of 40,000 new prescriptions per week, which is just insane. At that clip, shortages will persist. They'll never be able to keep up with this demand until we have other options on the market, until we have perhaps liraglutide, which we're expecting at the middle of the year to be in a state where it can be made in a generic form. And so until then, hold on, buckle up. I've got plenty of videos and plenty of content on my YouTube channel and on my TikTok about how to navigate those shortages so that you're not experiencing these crazy swings in the supplies. It's just a frustrating roller coaster to be on. So you have my sympathy if you're struggling getting your dose. Make sure you check out my videos on YouTube. But moving right along, some really interesting news today that you saw, that Novo Nordisk, the parent company of Novo Nordisk, has inked a deal to acquire for $16 billion and change. Just change, right? Millions. Catalent. So Catalent had been working with Novo Nordisk prior to this deal being done, where they were helping with the filling and boxing of the pens. So they've acquired the company for $16 billion, which effectively means that Novo Nordisk will be taking over 3 of their fill factories. And so that's awesome for capacity when you think about Wegovy and Ozempic. But even looking forward into the future, 26, 27, CagriSema, not sure how much the pens will differ, but I know from friends on the clinical trial that they are in injector pens. So we will have to see what happens with that. But 2026 is probably the earliest that we see this particular acquisition ease the supply of Wegovy and Ozempic. So interesting news. You see these manufacturers moving to increase capacity. This is arguably the largest move that we've seen. Now, if you do go back in the news, back to the fall time, Catalent was actually in some hot water with the FDA for one of, I believe it was their Belgium plant. And they were having some repeated violations from the FDA. So I think this is also good for Novo Nordisk, because it brings Catalent under the umbrella of their systems, their processes, and they can kind of apply their systems and processes to the manufacturing that goes on there at Catalent. And I think it'll be a really, really good win for those who are on the pen in the long run. Want to take a moment to let you all know, if you're not aware, that I do a weekly show on YouTube called On the Pen Live. On the Pen Live is a weekly talk show that we do. It's interactive, interact with the community members there, but also, we go over a little bit of this news, get a little bit deeper into the commentary maybe of the news. And then we always have a special guest on. And so I really, really, really would appreciate if you would check out On the Pen. I think you'd enjoy it. We would love to grow the community over there. So if you are just listening to the podcast, make sure you jump over to my YouTube channel. If you're also on TikTok or Twitter, I'm at those destinations as well. Facebook, got a big group over there. So find me on all the socials at Man on the Manjaro. If you're looking on Twitter, it's just Man on Manjaro. There aren't enough characters. So we'll hope to catch you over there. Some interesting news came out also about a new molecule that is in clinical trials from Amgen. And this is a really interesting medication. It is a novel approach to obesity medicine. It's called Maritide, and Maritide is actually a combination monoclonal antibody treatment. It looks like it is a once monthly treatment, but they're seeing some really, really interesting things in the preliminary trials. They're seeing some weight loss that definitely rivals the current injectables. But kind of the interesting thing that they're going for with this one is that you might be able to wean off this one and keep the weight off. So that'll be an interesting one, rather, to follow over the next couple of years as they move this into further clinical trials. I think that what's really fascinating to me about this medication is it's a GLP. It works by activating the GLP-1 receptors, like other medications that we know about, Wegovy and Zepbound. But interestingly, it blocks the GIP receptors. And if you know much about tirzepatide, Mounjaro or Zepbound, it actually stimulates, I don't know if that's the right word, but and agonizes. It's an agonist. It stimulates the GIP receptors in your body as if that hormone were there, right? So it's an analog to the GIP hormone. So you've got one on one hand that stimulates and one that blocks, and both see success. And I think it's so fascinating. It's a fascinating part of obesity medicine that we can just kind of sort of mess with the GIP and get the same kind of outcome. So I think it'll be really interesting to follow what the science shows over the years as to why it just seems that tinkering with the GIP seems to work, whether you're blocking the receptor or you're stimulating the receptor. It seems to work both ways, which is kind of a fascinating deal. I don't know if there's other examples of that in medicine in other areas. Perhaps you could drop a note in the chat if you're over on YouTube watching. Of course, the members of our YouTube channel get the video version of this every week. And after the week's up, it opens up to everybody. So leave it in the chat if you know another example in medicine where it seems like you can kind of, stimulate a hormone receptor or block one and you get similar outcomes. Just very, very fascinating. So moving right along, it is a really interesting week in the world of GLP-1 medications because it is Eli Lilly earnings call week. So tomorrow we're going to have a special episode of the Weekly Dose podcast. We'll do this quarterly with both the Novo Nordisk calls and the Eli Lilly earnings calls, because a lot of times there's a lot of forward-looking information. So what we glean out of that is, it'll be interesting to hear Eli Lilly talk about the Mounjaro shortages tomorrow. That's one of the things that I will be listening for specifically, because I am making a bold prediction that I think Eli Lilly will have to release single-dose vials of Mounjaro in the United States to keep up with supply. I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point, and I'm really hoping tomorrow that we hear tomorrow, which will be today, the day that this launches. I'm looking forward to hearing that hopefully they will be launching the single-dose vials in the United States. So we'll have to have a big TBD hanging over our heads on that one, but I'm eager to hear that. Also eager to hear, any updates on the retatrutide trials, the orforglipron trials. Of course, a lot of other companies are moving into the space and testing out different peptides. Some that, like looking at CagriSema, which would be, appears to be rivaling some of the things that retatrutide can do, although perhaps not quite as much weight loss. And we'll see on the liver studies as well, but be an interesting one to watch. So make sure you tune into that. You'll be able to catch that one on YouTube as well, if you would like. One of the interesting things that we saw this week is Abbott is getting into the GLP-1 game. So they launched a new protein shake design for weight loss and muscle mass maintenance. So this will be an interesting one to check out as it comes out. The protein shake is the first product under Abbott's new brand, Protality. So they launched this new brand, Protality, and underneath that is this new protein shake designed specifically for people who are on a GLP-1 medication. So if you're in that class of medications, that is specifically what this protein drink will have been designed for. I think you're going to see more and more of this. I think you'll see the big players get into the game on this, whether it be Coca-Cola or PepsiCo, some of the big players in the industry. Got to grab back at some of that market share they've lost from people getting off of their sugary beverages and some of their, I believe PepsiCo and and Frito-Lay are owned by the same company. You see some of these stocks getting hit a little bit. Some of it I'm sure is the economy. The other part of it is definitely fewer people buying their bags of Doritos every week. So we'll be interested to follow that one. Abbott CEO Robert Ford mentioned that the plans for the nutrition products that support GLP-1s is an ongoing thing for them, and with a goal on supporting maintaining muscle mass. So that'll be interesting to watch. GLP-1 medications like Mounjaro, Ozempic, Wegovy are obviously in huge demand. And so with so many people being on these and so much concern around preservation of muscle mass during weight loss, and again, weight loss and losing muscle mass as you lose weight, especially rapidly, are a normal thing. It's not unique to GLP-1 medications. And they're certainly looking at stacking things like tirzepatide with bimagrumab. You see that Eli Lilly purchased that asset earlier in 2023. You see studies going on right now with Novo Nordisk and some of the other players, Regeneron, and getting into the game on just how can we help support weight loss, but preserve, in some cases, even try to maybe increase muscle mass. So that'll be interesting to watch. In the meantime, Abbott's got their protein shakes that are going to be uniquely designed for users on GLP-1, and they actually plan on doing some clinical trials around how effective these shakes can be. So that'll be interesting to watch. Well, I appreciate you tuning in here. Again, stay tuned tomorrow for the special episode where we'll be following up on the Eli Lilly quarterly earnings call. They're going to be folding into this their forward-looking call for 2024 as well, which is always interesting. Usually we get that in the December in the year prior. So I'm wondering if maybe we'll see some major announcements tomorrow. So you got to stay tuned to my TikTok. You got to stay tuned to my YouTube channel, because if there's any breaking news, we're going to get it out right away, right? But you're going to get the full rundown the only way that you're used to getting it from Man on the Mounjaro, either on YouTube or here on the podcast. So I really appreciate you all joining. Thank you. Consider giving this podcast, if you enjoy it. One of the ways that you can help support the work that I do is to just give it a 5-star rating and a review. If you do that, obviously, you know how the game works. The algorithms pick it up and get this out. We would love for more people to join this podcast every week to learn more about life on the pen. Until next week, we'll see you on the pen. Welcome to the Weekly Dose Podcast, your one-stop shop for the weekly news in incretin mimetic therapies, with your host, Man on the Mounjaro, Dave Knapp.